They told us Apollo 17 was the final moon mission, but I uncovered classified NASA files revealing the truth: a mysterious portal discovered on the lunar surface that triggered a top-secret expedition. What would you do if you found out everything you know about the space race was a government cover-up to hide what's really waiting for us on the dark side of the moon? My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stared at the old box I'd found in my grandfather's attic. The faded NASA logo on its side made my heart beat faster. Grandpa Thomas had been gone for 3 months now, and Mom had finally let me go through his things. I never expected to find something like this. Inside the box was a worn leather journal with "Classy Feed, Apollo Program" stamped across its cover in red letters. Grandpa had been a scientist at NASA in the 1970s, but he never talked much about his work. He'd get a faraway look in his eyes whenever I asked. The first pages of the journal contained normal stuff: calculations, meeting notes, launch schedules. But halfway through, everything changed. The handwriting became messy, urgent. A photo fell out, a grainy black and white image of the moon's surface with something circled in red marker. Something that shouldn't be there. "Tommy, dinner's ready," Mom called from downstairs. I quickly stuffed the photo back in the journal and hid it under my pillow. "Coming!" I had to read more later. That thing on the moon, it looked like a perfect hexagon carved into the lunar surface. And next to it, my grandfather had written, "God help us." It opened. After dinner, I locked my bedroom door and pulled out the journal again. The next pages told a story so crazy I almost didn't believe it. According to Grandpa, during the final orbit of Apollo 17 in December 1972, astronauts photographed something impossible on the far side of the moon, a structure that appeared to be artificial. "Mission control went silent when the images came through," Grandpa wrote. "Within an hour, the photos were confiscated. Within a day, half the science team was reassigned. Within a week, President Nixon himself had signed off on a mission that officially never existed, Apollo 18. I felt cold all over. Everyone knew Apollo 17 was the last moon mission. It's in all the history books. But here was my grandfather claiming there was another mission, a secret one. The journal said he was selected as the science specialist because of his background in theoretical physics. The crew also included Commander James Reeves and Dr. Eliza Chen, a xenobiologist. Flipping through more pages, I found schematic drawings of the lunar module, modified with extra equipment I didn't recognize. There were training schedules, medical reports, and mission parameters marked "Ease only." The launch date was set for July 16, 1973, exactly 4 years after Apollo 11. The mission objectives chilled me to the bone. 1. Land near anomaly site. 2. Investigate structure. 3. Determine if breach has occurred. 4. Secure any non-terrestrial technology. Entities. Non-terrestrial entities? They were looking for aliens? The next few pages contained my grandfather's personal thoughts, growing more worried as launch day approached. "Something isn't right," he wrote. "Director Wallace is keeping information from the crew. The military presence has tripled. Yesterday, I overheard General Morrison mention previous contact, as if this wasn't our first encounter with whatever is on the moon. I was so absorbed in reading that I jumped when my phone buzzed. It was my best friend Mia. "Did you do the history homework?" I hadn't even started it. How could I focus on homework when I was holding evidence that might rewrite history? I quickly texted back, "Not yet. Found something weird in Grandpa's stuff. Come over tomorrow after school?" I returned to the journal. The entries now detailed the final preparations for launch. Grandpa described saying goodbye to Grandma, who thought he was going to a research facility in Nevada. He wrote about the weight of lies and secrets, but also his excitement about possibly making the greatest discovery in human history. The launch account was detailed: the rumble of engines, the crushing G-forces, the sudden silence of space. 3 days later, they were orbiting the moon. The crew separated, with Commander Reeves and Grandpa taking the lunar module down, while Dr. Chen remained in the command module. "The landing was perfect," Grandpa wrote. "As we touched down, I could see it through the viewport. The hexagonal depression, much larger than the photograph suggested. At least 30 feet across, with strange markings around its perimeter that seemed to glow faintly in the lunar night. The final entry on that page made my skin crawl. We're suited up and ready for EVA. Houston has gone unusually quiet. Jim thinks it's just communication interference, but I'm not so sure. The hexagon is changing. It wasn't a depression at all, it's opening. God help us, it's a door, and I don't think we're the first ones here. The next page had been torn out. In fact, several pages were missing. The journal picked up again 2 months later, with my grandfather back on Earth, his handwriting now shaky and almost unrecognizable. They're watching me. They know I took these records. I don't have much time to hide them before they come. The public needs to know the truth about what we found, what we lost, and what followed us back. That was the last entry. The remaining pages were blank. I sat on my bed, heart pounding. What happened on the moon? What did they find? And why was this mission erased from history? A soft tap at my window made me jump. I pulled back the curtain, expecting to see a tree branch, but there was nothing there. Just the full moon, bright and watching. Had Grandpa really walked on its surface during a secret mission? And if he did, what terrible secret did he bring back with him? 6 weeks later, I still couldn't stop thinking about Grandpa's journal. I'd shown it to Mia, who thought it was either an amazing discovery or an elaborate work of fiction. Your grandfather could have been writing a sci-fi novel, she suggested as we walked to school. Old NASA scientists probably have wild imaginations. But I couldn't accept that. The journal felt too real, too detailed. And there were the missing pages. Why tear them out if it was just a story? Look, I found something, I said, pulling up a website on my phone. This conspiracy forum has a post about lost Apollo mission audio. Someone claiming to be an ex-NASA communications specialist uploaded it last year. Mia rolled her eyes. Tommy, those sites are full of crazy people who think the Earth is flat. Just listen, I insisted, handing her my earbuds. The scratchy recording began with standard mission communications, then deteriorated into static. But through the noise, a voice, possibly Commander Reeves, could be heard. Houston, we're seeing activity. The structure is not of human origin. Carter is approaching. Carter, my grandfather's last name. It could be fake, Mia admitted, but it's creepy. What are you going to do? That question had kept me up for weeks. If Grandpa's journal was real, then NASA, maybe even the government, had been hiding the truth about what was found on the moon for over 50 years. I needed to know more. After school, I biked to the local library and asked for newspapers from July 1973, when Apollo 18 supposedly launched. The librarian, Mrs. Broad, Patel, helped me with the microfilm machine. What's your project about? She asked kindly. The Apollo program, I said, keeping it vague. I spent hours scrolling through news from that summer, nothing about a moon mission. But on July 17, a small article caught my eye. Fire at NASA facility claims lives. The report mentioned a training accident that killed 3 NASA employees. Dr. Thomas Carter, Commander James Reeves, and Dr. Eliza Chen. My blood ran cold. The exact crew from Grandpa's journal reported dead the day after their secret launch. But my grandfather hadn't died in 1973. He'd lived until 3 months ago. Someone had faked their deaths. I was so distracted that I nearly missed the man watching me from between the bookshelves. When I looked up, he quickly turned away, but not before I glimpsed his NASA lapel pin. That night, I called Mia in a panic. Someone was following me at the library, I whispered, afraid of being overheard, and I found an article saying Grandpa died in 1973. Tommy, you're scaring me, Mia said. Maybe you should stop digging into this. I can't. Not now. I took a deep breath. I'm going to NASA. What? How? The school science competition next week. The winners tour Johnson Space Center. I need to win. My science project had been mediocre at best, but now I had new motivation. I stayed up all night rebuilding it, creating a detailed model of lunar soil composition based on notes from Grandpa's journal. Information that wasn't in our textbooks. The judges were impressed. Where did you learn about these trace elements? One asked. They're not commonly known. My grandfather worked for NASA, I said truthfully. He left some notes. 2 days later, I was on a bus with 4 other winners, heading to Johnson Space Center in Houston. My plan was simple but terrifying. Somehow slip away from the tour and find information about Apollo 18. The center was massive and heavily secured. Our tour guide, Dr. Lewis, showed us mission control, astronaut training facilities, and research labs. I tried to act normal while memorizing the layout. During lunch, I overheard Dr. Lewis talking to an older man in the cafeteria. The director wants all the Apollo records moved to secure storage, the man said, especially anything from 72, 73. Dr. Lewis noticed me listening and quickly changed the subject. But our eyes met, and I saw something there. Recognition, fear. She'd seemed friendly during the tour, but now she watched me carefully. After lunch, as our group headed to the space shuttle exhibit, I pretended to tie my shoe and let them get ahead. When they turned a corner, I ducked into a side hallway marked "Authorized Personnel Only." The hallway led to a large archive room filled with filing cabinets. My heart pounded as I scanned the labels. Apollo 11, Apollo 12, all the way to Apollo 17, nothing labeled Apollo 18. But there was a cabinet marked simply Special Projects 1973. I was reaching for it when the light suddenly went out. "You shouldn't be in here, Thomas," said a voice behind me. Dr. Lewis stood in the doorway, her silhouette blocking the exit. "How do you know my name?" I stammered. "Because you look just like him," she replied, stepping into the room. As she got closer, I realized with a shock that the tour guide was much older than I'd initially thought. Her face was lined with age, mostly concealed by expert makeup. "Like who?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. "Like your grandfather," she sighed. "I'm Dr. Eliza Chen, and we've been watching you since you found Tom's journal." My mouth felt dry as I stared at the woman claiming to be Dr. Eliza Chen, the same Dr. Chen who supposedly died with my grandfather in 1973. "That's impossible," I whispered. "You'd be old?" She smiled slightly. "I'm 78, Thomas. Excellent skincare and good genes help. But yes, I'm much older than I appear on first glance." She led me to a small office down the hall, checking constantly to make sure no one saw us. Inside, she locked the door and pulled down the blinds. "We don't have much time," she said, her voice now urgent. "What exactly did you find in your grandfather's journal?" I hesitated, unsure if I could trust her. "If you really knew him, you'd know what he wrote." Dr. Chen sighed and pulled a chain from under her shirt. A NASA ID badge dangled from it, old and faded, but clearly showing her much younger face alongside the names Apollo 18 and Special Lunar Task Force. "I was there, Thomas. I was in orbit around the moon, while Tom and Jim went down to the surface." Her eyes grew distant. Only Jim never came back up. A chill ran through me. "What happened to Commander Reeves?" She shook her head. "Not here. There are cameras everywhere, even in places you wouldn't expect." She scribbled something on a piece of paper and pressed it into my hand. "If you want the truth about what your grandfather found, meet me at this address tonight at 8. Come alone and make sure you're not followed." The piece of paper had an address in Clear Lake, a neighborhood not far from the Space Center. I stuffed it in my pocket as a loud knock rattled the door. "Dr. Lewis, are you in there?" It was the voice of our regular tour guide, sounding worried. Dr. Chen immediately transformed back into Dr. Lewis, the friendly tour guide. "Just giving our young winner some career advice," she called out cheerfully. She whispered to me, "Tell no one. Trust no one." Then she opened the door with a bright smile. "Sorry for the delay. Thomas had some fascinating questions about xenobiology." The tour guide looked confused. "That's not on our usual tour topics." "Young minds. So curious." Dr. Chen laughed, gently pushing me toward the group. "Now, I believe you were headed to the shuttle exhibit." As I rejoined the group, my mind raced. Dr. Eliza Chen was alive. The Apollo 18 mission was real, and whatever they found on the moon was important enough for NASA to fake the deaths of 3 people and keep it secret for 50 years. That evening, I told my competition chaperone I wasn't feeling well and wanted to rest in my hotel room. As soon as she left to take the other winners to dinner, I slipped out and caught a bus to the address Dr. Chen had given me. The house was small and ordinary looking, set back from the street behind tall hedges. No cars were visible in the driveway. I hesitated at the gate, suddenly afraid. What if this was a trap? What if she worked for whoever had been following me? But I needed answers. I pushed open the gate and walked up to the front door. Before I could knock, it swung open. "You weren't followed?" Dr. Chen asked, peering past me into the darkness. "I don't think so." She pulled me inside quickly and locked the door. The house was sparsely furnished, with blank walls and minimal furniture. It didn't look lived in. "This is a safe house," she explained, noticing my confusion. "One of several I maintain. Please, sit down." I sat on a stiff couch while she checked all the windows were covered. Finally, she took a seat across from me. "First, you should know your grandfather was the bravest man I ever met," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "What he did saved us all, though the cost was." She paused, collecting herself. "I need to know exactly what was in that journal." I told her everything I'd read, the secret mission, the hexagonal structure, the strange door. When I mentioned the torn-out pages, her face darkened. "Tom removed those pages for your protection. If they were found, anyone who read them would be in danger." She leaned forward. "The hexagon wasn't just a door, Thomas. It was a portal, a gateway not just through space, but through time." My heart pounded in my chest. "A time portal? On the moon?" "We don't know who built it or when, but we know it's ancient, and we know it's not the only one." She walked to a bookshelf and pulled out what looked like an old photo album. These were taken by Apollo 18's cameras. The photos showed the lunar surface and the hexagonal structure. As the sequence progressed, the hexagon changed, opening like petals of a flower to reveal a swirling blue light beneath. "Commander Reeves and your grandfather were conducting EVA when it activated, Dr. Chen continued. "Houston lost contact with them for 12 minutes. When communications returned, only Tom was responding. He said Jim had gone through." "Through the portal?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded grimly. "Tom wanted to go after him, but I convinced him to return to the lunar module. We were preparing to leave when..." She pointed to the next photo. It showed a figure emerging from the blue light. A person in a NASA spacesuit, but the suit was different, more advanced somehow. This astronaut claimed to be Commander James Reeves, but he said he'd been gone for 20 years his time. He said he'd seen the future, and it was. She swallowed hard. Not good. The next photos were blurry, taken during what appeared to be a struggle inside the lunar module. This Reeves, or whatever he was, tried to force us to go back through the portal with him. He said they needed more subjects. Tom fought him off while I got us back to the command module. Her hands trembled slightly. "We left him there, on the moon. But not before he damaged our communication system and injected Tom with... something." I felt sick. "What happened when you got back to Earth?" "NASA quarantined us immediately. Director Wallace claimed it was standard procedure, but we knew better. They separated us, ran tests. The substance in Tom's bloodstream wasn't like anything they'd seen before. It was changing him." She closed the photo album. "They were going to keep us locked up forever, so we escaped." "How?" I asked, amazed. "We had help. Not everyone at NASA agreed with what Wallace was doing. A doctor helped us fake our deaths and gave us new identities." She smiled sadly. "Your grandfather became Robert Miller, physics teacher. I became Helen Lewis, biologist. We were supposed to disappear completely, live quiet lives. But you didn't." "No. Because the changes in Tom didn't stop. And because we discovered NASA wasn't done with the portal. They've been back to the moon, Thomas. Multiple times, in secret missions disguised as satellite deployments, and whatever came through that portal has been influencing Earth's development ever since." A sudden noise outside made us both freeze. Dr. Chen quickly turned off the lights and moved to the window, peering through a crack in the blinds. "A car," she whispered. "Black SUV, no plates." "Is that bad?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Very. We need to leave, now." She hurried to the kitchen and opened what looked like a pantry door, revealing stairs leading down. "This tunnel connects to the house 2 streets over. We keep emergency supplies there." As we descended into the darkness, I heard a loud crash above us, the sound of the front door being broken down. "They found us." Dr. Chen breathed. "Run!" The tunnel was narrow and damp, lit only by dim emergency lights along the floor. Dr. Chen moved quickly despite her age, pulling me along when I slowed down. "Don't stop," she urged. "They'll have thermal scanners. We need to get beyond their search radius." "Who are they?" I gasped, struggling to keep up. "They call themselves the Lunar Security Division. Officially, they don't exist. They're the guardians of the portal's secret, answerable only to a handful of people at the top of the government." Her voice was tight with fear. "They've been chasing us for 50 years. The tunnel ended at a metal ladder leading up to a trapdoor. Dr. Chen punched a code into a keypad, and the door unlocked with a soft click. We emerged into a garage containing an old Volkswagen van. "Get in," she ordered, grabbing a duffel bag from a shelf. "We need to reach your grandfather's storage unit before they do." As we drove through the quiet streets of Clear Lake, Dr. Chen explained more. After escaping NASA's quarantine, my grandfather had started experiencing strange symptoms, vivid dreams of the future, moments of knowing things he couldn't possibly know. Tom believed the injection from the false reefs was changing his brain, allowing him to perceive time differently. She said, constantly checking the rearview mirror. He started writing everything down, predictions, warnings, scientific breakthroughs that wouldn't happen for decades. Is that why they want him? For the predictions? Partly, but mostly because of what his blood contains. She turned onto the highway, keeping exactly at the speed limit. The substance is self-replicating but needs a human host. In the wrong hands, it could be weaponized. In the right hands, it might help humanity prepare for what's coming. "What is coming?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Contact." Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "The portal builders are returning, Thomas. Your grandfather predicted the exact date, July 20th, 2025, the anniversary of the first moon landing. That was less than 8 months away." We drove in silence for a while, the implications sinking in. Finally, I asked the question that had been bothering me most. If Grandpa could see the future, why didn't he prevent his own death? Dr. Chen's expression softened. He saw many possible futures, not just one. Some things he could change. Others were fixed points. She sighed deeply. His death was one he chose not to avoid, because in the timelines where he lived longer, something much worse happened. We arrived at a storage facility on the outskirts of Houston. Dr. Chen parked behind the building, away from security cameras. "Your grandfather kept all his research here," she explained as we approached Unit 1972, the year they found the portal. "He knew someday you would need it." "Me? Why me?" "Because you have his blood, Thomas. You inherited the changes." She looked at me intently. "Haven't you noticed? The dreams? Knowing things you shouldn't know?" I froze. The weird dreams I'd been having since Grandpa died. Dreams of space and strange lights and voices speaking in languages I didn't understand but somehow comprehended. I'd thought they were just grief. "How did you know?" I whispered. "Because Tom predicted it. He said his grandson would finish what we started." She unlocked the storage unit and rolled up the door. Inside was a small laboratory, computer equipment, filing cabinets, and in the center, a large object covered with a tarp. "This is everything we've gathered over 50 years, Dr. Chen said, turning on the lights. "Research, samples, evidence. Tom spent his life preparing for what's coming." She pulled off the tarp, revealing what looked like a miniature version of the lunar portal, a hexagonal frame containing swirling blue light. "He built it," I gasped. "A portal?" "Not exactly. It's a receiver, tuned to the frequency of the lunar portal. It can't transport matter, but it can receive transmissions." She touched the frame reverently. "We've been monitoring the signals for decades. At first they were random, incomprehensible. But recently they've changed, become structured, like a countdown." She turned to a computer and typed in a password. The screen showed a series of pulses, forming a pattern that repeated exactly every 24 hours. "The signal will reach its peak on July 20th, she explained. "When it does, we believe the lunar portal will fully activate, creating a permanent gateway." "And that's when they'll come through?" I asked. "Yes, but we don't know if they're coming as friends or invaders." She opened a filing cabinet and removed a thick folder. "Your grandfather had theories. Based on what Commander Reeves told him before the fight, these beings see humans as resources, not equals." A loud bang outside made us both jump. Through the small window, I could see headlights. multiple vehicles surrounding the storage facility. "They found us," Dr. Chen said grimly. "We don't have much time." She thrust the folder into my hands. "You need to memorize as much of this as you can. The formulas, the coordinates, the activation sequence. It's all here." "But I don't understand any of this," I protested, flipping through pages of complex equations and diagrams. "You will," she assured me. "The knowledge is in your blood, Thomas. It just needs to be awakened." She removed a small metal case from her pocket. Inside was a syringe filled with blue liquid. "This is the last sample of the enhanced compound. Your grandfather refined it, made it safer." I backed away. "You want to inject me with that?" "No way. It's the only way to unlock your full potential in time." Her eyes were pleading. "Without this, you won't be able to understand what needs to be done when they arrive." Before I could answer, the storage unit door rattled violently. Someone was trying to force it open. "We're out of time," Dr. Chen said, grabbing my arm. "There's a back way out through Unit 1969. You need to take the research and run. Find Maria Wells in Colorado. She was part of our network. She'll help you." "What about you?" I asked, suddenly afraid for her. "I'll hold them off." She pressed a key into my hand. "This opens a locker at the Houston bus station. Inside is money, ID, everything you'll need." The banging on the door grew louder, metal groaning under the pressure. "But I don't know what to do," I cried, panic rising in my chest. Dr. Chen grabbed my shoulders. "The fate of humanity depends on what happens when that portal fully opens. Your grandfather believed there was a way to control it, to ensure we meet them on our terms, not theirs." She pushed me toward a hidden door at the back of the unit. "The answers are in your blood, Thomas. You just have to find them." The storage unit door burst open. Men in black tactical gear poured in, weapons raised. "Run!" Dr. Chen shouted, pushing me through the back door. "Find Maria Wells, and remember, July 20th. I ran into the night, the folder clutched to my chest, the sound of shouting behind me. As I reached the fence at the edge of the property, I heard a strange humming noise. Turning back, I saw the miniature portal glowing brighter, the blue light pulsing rapidly. Dr. Chen stood before it, her hands on the frame, facing the men who had stopped in their tracks, weapons trained on her. "You're too late," I heard her call out. "It's already begun." The blue light suddenly expanded, engulfing Dr. Chen and the men in a blinding flash. When it faded seconds later, the storage unit was empty. Everyone was gone. I climbed the fence, my mind reeling with questions. What had happened to Dr. Chen and the men? Where had the portal taken them? And most importantly, what was I supposed to do now? With shaking hands, I opened the folder again, and to my shock, the equations suddenly made sense. The knowledge was unlocking itself in my mind, just as Dr. Chen had said it would. I had to get to Colorado. I had to find Maria Wells. Because somehow, impossibly, I was now carrying the secret that could save humanity from what was coming through the moon portal. I'll create Acts 5 and 6 with approximately 1,000 words each, maintaining the engaging narrative style while keeping the language accessible to 4th grade level readers. The bus trip to Colorado was the longest journey of my life. Every passing car made me duck down in my seat. Every person who looked at me too long sent my heart racing. The folder from Grandpa's storage unit sat heavy in my backpack, its contents swimming through my mind even when I wasn't reading them. Something strange was happening to my brain. Words and symbols I'd never seen before suddenly made perfect sense. Complex math equations solved themselves in my head while I stared out the window. It was like having a computer inside my skull, processing information without my control. "Last stop, Denver," the bus driver called as we pulled into the station on a cold morning. My breath made little clouds in the air as I stepped off the bus, clutching Dr. Chen's hastily scribbled address. Maria Wells lived in a small mountain town called Pine Ridge, about 2 hours from Denver. I spent my last dollars on a local bus ticket, fighting exhaustion as the vehicle wound its way up steep mountain roads. Pine Ridge was tiny, just a main street with a few shops, surrounded by cabins scattered among the pine trees. The address led me to a small house on the edge of town, its wooden porch sagging slightly under the weight of potted plants and wind chimes. I hesitated before knocking. What if this was another trap? What if Maria Wells worked for the Lunar Security Division? But I had nowhere else to go, No one else to trust. I knocked. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 70s with silver hair pulled back in a braid. She wore overalls covered in paint splatters and held a mug of steaming tea. Her eyes widened at the sight of me. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You look just like him." "Maria Wells?" I asked cautiously. She nodded, still staring like she'd seen a ghost. "You're Tom's grandson, Thomas." I confirmed. "Dr. Chen told me to find you." Maria's expression darkened. "Eliza sent you? Where is she?" "She." I swallowed hard, the memory of that blinding blue light still fresh. Something happened. At Grandpa's storage unit. She and the men chasing us, they disappeared. Into some kind of portal. Maria's mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the porch. She grabbed my arm with surprising strength. Inside. Now. Her cabin was filled with paintings, landscapes mostly, but interspersed with strange, abstract works featuring hexagonal shapes and swirling blue patterns. The same patterns I'd seen in the portal. "You've seen it," I said, pointing to one of the paintings. Not directly. Maria moved around the room, closing curtains and checking locks. Tom showed me sketches. After his encounter on the moon, he could see it in his mind. Sometimes the visions were so strong, he had to get them out. She gestured to the paintings. I helped him translate what he saw into images. She led me to a small study where a ham radio setup sat beside a modern computer. Maps covered one wall, marked with colored pins and strings connecting different locations. "This is our network," she explained, "or what's left of it. People who know the truth about Apollo 18, about the portals." "Portals? More than one?" Maria nodded grimly. The moon portal was the first we discovered, but not the first to exist. There are others, dormant or hidden. Easter Island, the Gobi Desert, the bottom of Lake Baikal. Tom theorized they form a network, like nodes in a circuit. She booted up the computer, entering a complex password. "We've been monitoring strange phenomena for decades. Unexplained disappearances, electromagnetic anomalies, people suddenly developing unusual abilities." She paused, looking at me intently. "Like you are now." My skin prickled. "How did you know? You're processing the folder's contents, aren't you? Understanding things beyond your education level." I nodded slowly. "It's like having someone else's memories." "In a way you do," she said, pulling up a file on the computer. "The substance that changed Tom's blood doesn't just alter DNA. It carries information, encoded experiences, knowledge, maybe even consciousness itself." The screen showed microscope images of blood cells unlike any I'd seen in science class. They seemed to shimmer, their edges blurring as if they weren't fully solid. "Is this Grandpa's blood?" "Yes." "And now, yours has similar properties." She touched the screen gently. Tom believed the portal builders engineered this substance as a way to communicate across time and space. By changing human biology, they could imprint knowledge directly into our genetic code. "But why?" I asked, struggling to understand. "Why choose humans? Why choose my grandfather?" Maria's eyes filled with sadness. "Tom wasn't chosen randomly. None of us were. The portal builders have been guiding human evolution for thousands of years, preparing us for something." She turned to face me directly. "Tell me, Thomas, have you been having dreams about stars? About configurations in the sky?" The question hit me like a physical blow. Since Grandpa died, I dreamed almost nightly about stars rearranging themselves, forming patterns that seemed to speak to me. "How did you know that?" I whispered. "Because we've all had those dreams, everyone exposed to the substance or its derivatives." She pulled out an old star chart. "These aren't random dreams. They're coordinates. The portal builders are showing us where they're coming from." A sudden burst of static from the ham radio made us both jump. A voice crackled through, distorted but recognizable. "Maria, are you there? It's happening again. The signals are getting stronger." Maria grabbed the microphone. "David, I have Tom's grandson with me. The boy from his predictions." A pause then. "Thank God. Is he showing the signs?" "Yes, the knowledge transfer is already happening." "Then we might still have a chance. The countdown has accelerated. We're seeing portal activity worldwide. My stomach tightened. What does he mean, accelerated? I thought we had until July 20th. Maria's face paled as David continued. The lunar base just went dark. All communications ceased 2 hours ago, and NASA has scrambled 3 classified launches in the last week. Whatever they're preparing for, it's happening now. The predictions were wrong? Maria asked, her voice shaking. Or deliberately altered, David replied. You need to show the boy the Genesis protocol, immediately. Maria turned to me, her expression grave. Thomas, what I'm about to show you will challenge everything you believe about humanity's place in the universe. Are you ready? Before I could answer, the cabin's lights flickered. Outside, a low humming sound filled the air, making the windows vibrate. They found us, Maria whispered, fear in her eyes. But how? I suddenly remembered Dr. Chen's words about the substance in my blood. It's me, I realized with horror. They're tracking me somehow. The humming grew louder, and through the window, I saw lights descending from the night sky, not helicopters or planes, but perfect circles of white light, moving with impossible precision. Maria grabbed a backpack from a closet. We need to reach the bunker. Tom built it for exactly this scenario. She thrust a small device into my hands, a thumb drive shaped like a hexagon. This contains the Genesis protocol. If anything happens to me, you must get this to the remaining network members. The cabin's front door exploded inward with a deafening crash. Through the splinters stepped a figure I recognized. Director Wallace, the man from the Apollo 18 photos. But he looked exactly the same as he had 50 years ago, not a day older. Hello, Thomas, he said calmly, as if we were old friends. I've been looking for you for a very long time. Director Wallace hadn't come alone. Behind him stood 4 people in dark suits, their faces expressionless, their movements too perfect to be natural. They spread out across Maria's cabin, not speaking, just watching. You'll have to forgive my associates, Wallace said, noticing my stare. They don't quite grasp the nuances of human interaction, but they're learning. Maria positioned herself between Wallace and me. You can't have him, Wallace smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. Maria Wells, the artist. We've found your paintings most instructive over the years. Your connection to Carter gave you surprising insight. He stepped further into the room, picking up one of the portal paintings. Though you never quite captured the true dimensions, the human mind isn't built to conceive of such things. What do you want? I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. The same thing I've wanted since 1972, Wallace replied. To ensure humanity's survival in the coming transition. He set down the painting carefully. Your grandfather understood this, in the end. Liar, Maria spat. Tom fought against you until his last breath. Did he? Wallace looked amused. Then why did he create you, Thomas? His cold eyes fixed on me. Why encode all that knowledge in your blood if not to fulfill the agreement we made? Confusion swirled through me. What agreement? The one that kept Earth safe for the past 50 years. The one your grandfather helped negotiate after Commander Reeves made contact with the architects. Wallace's face grew serious. The moon portal is just a doorway, Thomas. What matters is who controls what comes through it. A sharp pain lanced through my head, bringing flashes of memory that weren't mine. A dark conference room, documents being signed, my grandfather's voice arguing passionately. You're lying, I gasped, pressing my hands against my temples. Grandpa wouldn't help you. Help me? No. Help humanity? Absolutely. Wallace nodded to one of his associates, who produced a small silver device. The architects offered us a choice. Prepare for integration or face extinction. Your grandfather chose preparation, but on his terms. The Genesis protocol was his failsafe. Maria lunged for the back door, pulling me with her. Run, Thomas. We burst out into the cold night air, racing toward the tree line. Behind us, Wallace called calmly, Let them go. We know where the bunker is. The forest was dark, our path lit only by moonlight filtering through pine branches. Maria moved with surprising speed, following a trail invisible to my eyes. Was he telling the truth? I panted as we ran. About Grandpa working with them? Half-truths are more dangerous than lies, Maria replied grimly. Tom did help create the Genesis protocol. but not for the reasons Wallace claims. The architects aren't saviors or partners, they're colonizers. They've done this to countless worlds. We reached a small clearing where a rocky outcrop jutted from the mountainside. Maria pressed her hand against what looked like a natural pattern in the stone. A hidden door slid open. Inside, quickly. The bunker was small but well-equipped. Food stores, water purification system, communications equipment, and most surprisingly, a miniature version of the portal receiver I'd seen in Grandpa's storage unit. Tom built these receivers at 7 locations around the world, Maria explained, securing the door behind us. They can detect portal activity and, if necessary, disrupt it. Disrupt it how? Maria inserted the hexagonal thumb drive into a computer terminal. The Genesis protocol isn't about helping the architects come through, it's about closing the portals permanently. The screen lit up with familiar equations and diagrams. But now, with my enhanced understanding, I could see what they truly represented, a method for generating a specific frequency that would collapse the portal network. This would destroy all the portals? I asked, scanning the data. Yes, it's a last resort. Maria began powering up the equipment. The receivers must be activated simultaneously, creating a resonance wave that will destabilize the entire network. But what about Dr. Chen, if she went through the portal? The implications hit me hard. Closing the network would trap her wherever she is. Pain flashed across Maria's face. Eliza knew the risks, we all did. Sometimes sacrifice is necessary for the greater good. A warning light flashed on the communications panel. Maria checked the readout, her expression darkening. Portal activity is spiking worldwide. All 7 locations are reporting the same phenomenon. She looked up at me, fear in her eyes. It's beginning. The bunker's monitors showed live feeds from around the world, news reports of strange lights in the sky, electromagnetic disturbances, satellite communications failing. One monitor displayed NASA's public channel, where officials were describing the phenomena as unusual solar activity. They're lying to keep people calm, Maria said bitterly. But they can't hide this for long. The biggest screen showed a satellite image of the moon's far side, where a bright blue light was now clearly visible. The lunar portal, fully activated and growing larger by the minute. We need to implement the Genesis protocol now, Maria insisted, fingers flying over the keyboard. Before they come through in force. I stared at the equation on the screen, the culmination of my grandfather's life work. Something about it bothered me, a variable that seemed slightly off. Wait, I said, pointing to the formula. This frequency, it wouldn't collapse the portals. What? Of course it would. Tom calculated it precisely. No, look. My enhanced mind raced ahead, seeing the mathematics with perfect clarity. If you generate this exact frequency, it would stabilize the portals, not destroy them. It would make them permanent. Maria stepped back, shock on her face. That's impossible. Why would Tom? A new memory surfaced in my mind. My grandfather sitting at a desk, writing in his journal, whispering to himself, "They need to understand. It's not about keeping them out. It's about controlling the connection." Because destruction wasn't the answer, I said slowly. The truth becoming clear. Grandpa knew that cutting ourselves off completely would only delay the inevitable. The architects would find another way to reach Earth. So, what was he planning? Maria demanded. A controlled opening, a way for humans to set the terms of contact. I adjusted the equation, seeing the pattern now. This frequency wouldn't destroy the portals or fully open them. It would stabilize them at a specific state, allowing communication but restricting physical transit. The bunker door slid open before Maria could respond. Director Wallace stepped in, flanked by his silent associates. "Very good, Thomas," he said approvingly. "You've identified your grandfather's true intention." Maria grabbed a gun from under the console, aiming it at Wallace. "Stay back." Wallace didn't even flinch. "That won't be necessary, Maria. I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to help complete Tom's work." "Why should we believe you?" I demanded. "Because despite what Maria believes, I was Tom's ally, not his enemy." Wallace approached the portal receiver, studying it with appreciation. The Lunar Security Division wasn't formed to help the architects colonize Earth. It was created to ensure humanity had a seat at the table when they arrived. "You're lying," Maria insisted, the gun still trained on him. You chased us for decades. You threatened Tom's family. I protected his family, Wallace corrected. When others in the government wanted to use more extreme measures, I argued for patience. I knew Tom would eventually pass his knowledge to the next generation. He looked at me intently. To you, Thomas. A searing pain shot through my head again, bringing another memory. My grandfather and Wallace, younger, sitting in a small room. The formula in the Genesis protocol is incomplete, Wallace said. Tom divided the knowledge, half in the protocol, half in your blood. A failsafe to ensure both sides needed each other. Both sides? Those who want to destroy the portals, like Maria, and those who understand we need to control them instead. Wallace extended his hand. The choice is yours, Thomas. But know this, the architects are coming, regardless of what we do today. The only question is whether we meet them on our terms or theirs. The bunker began to shake, dust falling from the ceiling. The monitors showed portal activity increasing exponentially worldwide. We're out of time, Wallace urged. Your grandfather trusted you to make the right choice when the moment came. That moment is now. Maria still held the gun, but doubt had crept into her expression. Thomas, we can't trust him. Your grandfather. My grandfather knew this day would come. I interrupted, another memory surfacing. Grandpa sitting beside my bed when I was little, telling me stories about the stars. He prepared me for it my whole life. I looked between Maria and Wallace, feeling the weight of the choice before me. The entire world hanging in the balance, dependent on what I would do next. The portal receiver hummed to life, the hexagonal frame glowing with blue energy. On the monitors, the lunar portal flared brighter than ever. It's time, I said, placing my hands on the terminal. But I'm not following either of your plans. I began typing furiously, letting the knowledge in my blood guide my fingers. A new equation took shape on the screen. Not destruction, not full stabilization, but something in between. What are you doing? Wallace demanded, his calm facade cracking. What my grandfather truly wanted, I replied, understanding flowing through me. Creating a gateway we control, opening on our schedule, our location, not Mars or the moon, or any of their choosing. Maria lowered her gun, watching in amazement. He always said you would see what we couldn't. As I entered the final variable, the screens around us flickered. The portal receiver's glow changed from blue to golden. Outside, through the bunker's small window, I could see the night sky transforming, stars rearranging themselves into new patterns, just like in my dreams. It's done, I whispered. The message was sent, the choice made, and somewhere across the vast distances of space and time, the architects would receive humanity's answer, not surrender, not rejection, but an invitation to meet as equals. On our terms, in our time, for our future. I'll create Acts 7 and 8 with approximately 1,000 words each, maintaining the engaging narrative style while keeping the language accessible. 3 days passed inside Maria's bunker after I sent the message. The world outside descended into confusion as portal phenomena continued worldwide. News channels showed strange lights in the sky from Tokyo to Toronto. Scientists offered competing explanations, none coming close to the truth. Government officials urged calm while secretly mobilizing their militaries. Director Wallace remained with us, his expressionless associates stationed outside. The uneasy truce between Wallace and Maria created a tension that filled the small space, like smoke. Neither fully trusted the other, but both seemed to accept that I had changed the game. The signal is stabilizing, I reported, monitoring the portal receiver. The golden glow had settled into a steady pulse, like a heartbeat. The network isn't collapsing or fully opening, it's waiting. Waiting for what? Maria asked, her hands wrapped around a mug of instant coffee. For us to choose the entry point, Wallace explained, studying the data on the main screen. Thomas has essentially created a doorbell rather than leaving the door wide open. The architects can ring it, but we decide whether and where to answer. I felt another memory surface, Grandpa explaining this concept to someone unseen. Humanity needs to choose the battlefield. Not the moon, not Mars, not some remote location where we're at a disadvantage, somewhere meaningful to us. The realization hit me suddenly. I know where they need to come through. Both Maria and Wallace turned to me, waiting. Tranquility Base, I said confidently, the site of the first moon landing. Wallace's eyes widened slightly, the first genuine surprise I'd seen from him. Apollo 11's landing site? Why there? Because it matters to us, I explained, the knowledge flowing freely now. It represents our first step into space, our greatest achievement. By having them come through there, we're reminding them that we reached the moon through our own efforts. We're establishing ourselves as explorers, not just subjects for study. Maria nodded slowly. A symbolic choice. But how do we direct them there? The lunar portal is on the far side of the moon. We don't need to, I replied, fingers flying over the keyboard. Grandpa's equation creates a resonance pattern. We can tune it to specify coordinates within the network. I looked up at them both. We're not just responding to their signal, we're sending one of our own. Wallace stepped closer, examining my calculations. Remarkable. Tom built all of this into your genetic memory. He turned to Maria. You were right not to trust me completely. I didn't know this part of his plan. Because he didn't trust any one person with everything, Maria said, a hint of pride in her voice. Not even you. A warning tone from the communications panel interrupted us. One of the monitors showed a live news broadcast. Breaking news from NASA. Astronomical observatories worldwide are tracking what appears to be an object approaching Earth at incredible speed. NASA officials describe it as possibly cometary in nature, but have provided few details. They're coming, Wallace said quietly. Faster than anticipated. I checked the portal network data. No, they're not coming through yet. This is something else. The knowledge in my blood seemed to recognize the pattern. It's a probe, an automated emissary. Like the ones we sent to Mars? Maria asked. Similar concept, vastly different technology, I confirmed. It's testing our response. Wallace grabbed a secure phone from his pocket. I need to alert the Joint Chiefs. If the military detects this approaching Earth, they'll launch countermeasures. He paused, looking at me. Unless you think that would be a mistake? The responsibility of the moment weighed on me. Every decision now could determine humanity's future. Let them track it, but don't attack. The probe isn't hostile, it's information gathering. Attacking it would send the wrong message. Wallace nodded and made the call, speaking in rapid-fire code words I somehow understood despite never having heard them before. NASA's tracking stations have it entering lunar orbit within 12 hours, Wallace reported after hanging up. Your grandfather's colleagues at the old observatory in New Mexico identified it first. They're requesting your presence. My presence? I asked, surprised. Why? Because they recognize the signal pattern. It matches data Tom shared with them years ago. Wallace's expression softened slightly. Your grandfather built a network larger than any of us realized. People who would recognize this moment when it came. Maria looked skeptical. And you're just going to let us walk out of here? After chasing us for decades? The game has changed, Maria, Wallace replied simply. We're past the point of secrets and factions. What matters now is presenting a unified response. He gestured to the monitors showing chaos around the world. Humanity needs reassurance, direction. Before Maria could argue further, the bunker's communication system crackled to life. A familiar voice came through the static. Tommy! Tommy! Are you there? My heart seemed to stop. Mia? Tommy! Thank God! My best friend's voice was thick with emotion. Everyone's been looking for you. Your mom is freaking out. And there's weird stuff happening everywhere. How did you find this frequency? Maria demanded, suspicious. I didn't, Mia replied. Dr. Chen did. She told me to try it. My blood ran cold. Dr. Chen? Mia, that's impossible. She disappeared 3 days ago. Well, she showed up at my house this morning, Mia said, confusion evident in her voice. She looks different. Older, somehow. And she keeps talking about time dilation and phase shifts. She says you need to come to the observatory right away. Something about a temporal window that's only open for a few hours. Wallace and Maria exchanged alarmed glances. Eliza made it back, Maria whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. Through the portal. Mia, where are you now? I asked urgently. At the McDonald Observatory in Fort Davis, Texas. Dr. Chen says it's the only place with equipment powerful enough to communicate with the probe. Mia's voice dropped lower. Tommy, she also said to tell you that Commander Reeves was right. Does that mean anything to you? Another memory surfaced, the struggle in the lunar module, Commander Reeves' last words before he was pulled back into the portal. They're not what we think they are. Time means nothing to them. Past, present, future, it's all the same. We need to get to that observatory, I decided, standing up. Now. Wallace was already moving toward the door. I'll arrange transport. Helicopter can be here in 20 minutes. Maria hesitated, decades of distrust not easily set aside. How do we know this isn't a trap? Because Dr. Chen came back, I said, gathering my backpack and the thumb drive. She went through the portal and returned with information we need. And if Commander Reeves was right about the architect's relationship with time, I trailed off, the implications becoming clear. They might already know what choices we make, Maria finished, understanding dawning on her face. Past, present, future, all simultaneous to them. Which means this was always how it was supposed to happen. I realized. Grandpa knew. That's why he encoded everything the way he did. He wasn't just leaving breadcrumbs for me to follow, he was fulfilling a role in a plan that spans decades. The bunker ceiling suddenly shook as the whump 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 of helicopter blades cut through the mountain air. Wallace opened the door, snow and wind swirling in. "It's time to go," he said, his voice raised against the noise. "The next few hours will determine everything." As we emerged from the bunker into the blinding sunlight reflected off snow, I looked up to see a military helicopter descending into the clearing. Beyond it, in the clear blue sky, a streak of light was visible. The Architect probe, already visible even in daylight, moving toward its lunar rendezvous. The first messenger from beyond was arriving, and somehow, impossibly, Dr. Chen had already returned with an answer. The helicopter ride was a blur of snow-capped mountains giving way to desert landscape. My mind raced with questions about Dr. Chen. How had she survived the portal? What had she seen? What did she mean about Commander Reeves being right? Maria sat beside me, tense and watchful, still not fully trusting Wallace, who spoke in hushed tones on a secure line at the front of the aircraft. His associates had remained behind, which somehow made me more uneasy, not less. "We're approaching McDonald Observatory," the pilot announced as a cluster of white domes appeared on a mountaintop ahead. "Prepare for landing." The complex sprawled across the summit, a mixture of telescope domes and research buildings. But what caught my eye was the addition that didn't belong, a temporary structure surrounded by military vehicles and personnel. "What is that?" I asked, pointing. Wallace pocketed his phone. "A portable portal receiver, built to your grandfather's specifications from his work at NASA. It arrived this morning." The helicopter touched down on a makeshift landing pad. As the rotors slowed, I spotted Mia waiting behind a security line, jumping and waving frantically. Beside her stood a figure that made my heart skip, Dr. Chen, but changed in profound ways. Her hair had turned completely white, and she walked with a slight limp. Her eyes, when they met mine as I climbed out, held a depth of experience that sent chills down my spine. "Thomas," she said, embracing me tightly, "you made the right choice with the portal network, exactly as Tom predicted." "How did you?" I began, struggling to form the question. "Time works differently through the portals," she explained, her voice carrying a new accent I couldn't place. "For me, it's been almost 15 years. For you, just days." 15 years? Maria gasped, hurrying to her old friend's side. "Eliza, where were you all this time?" Dr. Chen's eyes clouded with memories. "Many places, many whens. The architects don't experience time linearly, so neither did I while in their realm." She turned to me. "But that's a story for later. Right now we have more urgent matters. The probe will reach its lunar orbit in less than an hour, and we need to be ready." She led our group into the observatory's main building, past security checkpoints where soldiers snapped to attention at Wallace's approach. Mia fell into step beside me. "Your mum thinks you're at a special NASA program for competition winners," she whispered. "Wallace's people arranged it. She's worried but proud." A pang of guilt hit me for all the fear I must have caused her. "Thanks for being here, Mia." She squeezed my hand. "Are you kidding? My best friend is involved in first contact with aliens. Wild horses couldn't keep me away." The observatory's main control room had been transformed. Scientists and military personnel worked at stations surrounding a central holographic display, showing Earth, the Moon, and the approaching probe's trajectory. At the far end stood the portable portal receiver, identical to the one in Maria's bunker but larger, connected to the observatory's powerful telescopes. "The probe will enter lunar orbit in 43 minutes, a technician announced. "It's slowing down, matching orbit with the Tranquility Base coordinates." Dr. Chen guided me to a specialized console. "This is where you'll need to work. The genetic knowledge in your blood contains the final communication protocols. We need to establish a proper greeting before the probe completes its survey." "But I don't know how to," I started to protest. "You do," she interrupted gently. "Trust the knowledge Tom gave you. Let it surface naturally." As I placed my hands on the console, the familiar sensation returned, information flowing through my mind like a river, my fingers moving of their own accord. Lines of code appeared on the screen, complex patterns I somehow understood perfectly. "It's a mathematical language," I explained, the words coming automatically. "Based on universal constants. Grandpa designed it as a bridge between human language and their communication system." Wallace watched with barely concealed amazement. "All these years, we tried to decipher their signals with our best computers and linguists, and Tom hid the key in his grandson's DNA. Because he knew machines alone couldn't adapt to their thinking," Dr. Chen explained. "It required human intuition combined with their knowledge, a true hybrid approach." She turned to me. "That's why you're so important, Thomas. You're the first of what your grandfather called the bridge generation, humans capable of truly understanding the architects." A countdown appeared on the main display, 30 minutes until the probe reached its final position. "We need to make a decision," Wallace announced to the room. "Do we transmit immediately, or wait for the probe to initiate contact?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "Neither. The probe is already scanning us, has been since it entered our solar system. What matters is what Thomas sends through the portal network." All eyes turned to me. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on my shoulders. What message should represent Earth's first official communication with another intelligence? Then I remembered something Grandpa used to say when teaching me about the stars. "The universe speaks in light, Tommy. It's the one language everything shares." "Light," I whispered, the answer becoming clear. "We need to send light." Working quickly, I integrated the observatory's main telescope into the portal network, reversing its function. Instead of receiving light, it would transmit it, focused through the portal receiver and amplified by the network itself. "What exactly are you planning?" Maria asked, watching me work. "The most basic universal greeting possible," I replied. "We're going to send them sunrise." Understanding dawned on Dr. Chen's face. "Of course, the daily miracle that every human throughout history has witnessed. The perfect symbol of humanity, a species born from a world of cycles, of beginnings and endings." I completed the final adjustments just as the countdown reached 5 minutes. The holographic display showed the probe settling into its orbit directly above Tranquility Base. "Ready when you are, Thomas," the lead technician confirmed. I took a deep breath, looking around at the faces watching me. Maria, who had protected my grandfather's legacy. Wallace, who had pursued it for his own purposes. Dr. Chen, who had sacrificed years of her life traveling through realms I could barely imagine. And Mia, my best friend, representing the normal life I might never return to. "Initiating transmission," I announced, pressing my palm against the console's scanner. The portal receiver hummed to life, its hexagonal frame glowing golden once more. The telescope's massive primary mirror tilted slightly, aligning perfectly with the receiver. Through the observatory's dome, a beam of concentrated light shot upward, invisible to the naked eye but tracked on our instruments. "Transmission reaching lunar coordinates," a technician reported. "Portal network activated at Tranquility Base." On the main screen, satellite imagery showed a hexagonal shape appearing on the lunar surface, exactly where Neil Armstrong had first stepped onto another world. The shape glowed with the same golden light as our receiver, growing brighter as energy flowed through the network. "The probe is responding," someone called out. "It's descending to the lunar surface." We watched, breathless, as the Architect probe approached the activated portal. It hovered for a moment, scanning the energy pattern, then slowly settled beside it. A panel opened in its smooth exterior, extending what looked like a communication array. "They're transmitting," a technician's voice rose with excitement. The main screen filled with patterns of light, shifting, flowing, organizing into recognizable shapes. First simple mathematics, then increasingly complex patterns. I understood them instantly, the knowledge in my blood translating the alien concepts into human terms. "They're acknowledging our greeting," I explained to the room. And I paused, amazed at what I was seeing. "They're asking permission to send representatives through the portal network, exactly as we specified, to Tranquility Base." Wallace stepped forward. "When?" I studied the transmission. "July 20th, 2025, the anniversary of Apollo 11. "Just as Tom predicted," Dr. Chen whispered. The patterns continued, showing images of Earth, human figures, and what appeared to be architectural designs. "They're suggesting an embassy," I translated. "Not an invasion or colonization. A place of meeting between equals." The room erupted in excited conversation. Wallace immediately began coordinating with government officials. Scientists huddled around data displays, analyzing every aspect of the transmission. In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Chen pulled me aside. "There's something you need to know, Thomas." Her expression was grave. "During my time through the portal, I met someone, the real Commander Reeves." My breath caught. "He's alive?" "Yes, but changed, like me. He's been living among the architects, learning their ways." She lowered her voice further. "The beings we call architects are actually—" She hesitated, struggling to find the words. "They're us, Thomas. Humanity, from the distant future, attempting to correct a catastrophic mistake in their past, our future." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. Time isn't linear to them because they've evolved beyond its constraints. The portal network wasn't built to invade us. It was created to save us. She gripped my shoulders. "Your grandfather discovered this truth during his lunar mission. That's why he created you, why he encoded the knowledge in your blood. You're not just a messenger, Thomas. You're a pivot point in human history." As the implications of her words sank in, the portal receiver suddenly pulsed with intensity. A new transmission appeared on the screen, a single image that silenced the entire room. It showed a human figure in an advanced spacesuit standing on the lunar surface beside the American flag at Tranquility Base. The figure was removing their helmet, revealing a face I recognized instantly. My own face, decades older, weathered by experiences I had yet to live. "It's you," Mia whispered beside me, her voice awed. "Not just me," I replied, understanding flowing through my enhanced mind. "All of us, the future of humanity, reaching back through time to ensure its own existence." The portal receiver's light gradually faded as the transmission ended. The probe on the lunar surface retracted its communication array and returned to orbit. But the message it delivered had forever changed our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe. I looked around the control room, at the scientists, the soldiers, the friends who had helped me reach this moment, and felt a strange peace settle over me. The path ahead would be complex and filled with challenges, but for the first time since finding Grandpa's journal, I understood my purpose completely. We weren't alone in the universe. We never had been. And on July 20th, 2025, humanity would finally meet itself, coming full circle in a journey that began with a single footprint on lunar dust and a portal discovered in '72.